We're gonna be talking about queer topics. Uh, I,
Woo!
as always, I identify as lesbian. Stephanie, my les bro here,
Strictly, strictly.
and then Kyrstin is gonna talk to us about queerness because I know nothing about it, and I'm ready and I'm excited to learn.
Yeah,
Oh
definitely.
yeah.
Did you guys have something you wanted to like ask
Yeah,
or you
let's start with how you got on this journey, because I'm sitting here today. I may be queer and I don't even know where to start. So, and maybe somebody tuning in, they might have clicked and they don't know where to start. How did you come about identifying like this?
when I was growing up, I actually grew up in Spokane, Washington, which is a really kind of it's a red city in a blue state, you know. And when I was growing up, the word queer was like that was like no. Like even in the gay community up there, it was like you don't call anybody queer. It was still a slur. And so when I moved to Portland, Oregon, that was when I first started hearing it being used as like an identifying factor for other queer people, used by the queer community. And so for a long time, I actually didn't identify as queer. I just identified as bisexual. Um, and it wasn't until I took a class. I'm a linguist, but I took a philosophy class because philosophy is fun. And it was called the philosophy of sex and love. And there was a specific topic in there when we were talking about like queer identities and being bisexual versus being gay or lesbian. And I'd always identified as bisexual because I was like, well, because I'm attracted to pretty much anybody. And I've been sort of flip flopping between pansexual and bisexual because, if a trans woman comes up to me and says, I'm a woman and I'm attracted to her, to me, that's me, a woman being attracted to a woman. But at the same time, so I've talked to some of my other trans friends who can feel that that's like a little bit of trans erasure. So then I went to pansexual for a while, bisexual for a while, and it honestly was this. It was really hard for me to figure out, like, to tell other people, you know, where I belong, and I couldn't find a label that really fit. And so I found queer, and other people were calling themselves queer, but they had a lot of different identities. And so it's kind of an umbrella term that just says, my sexual orientation, my gender identity, or lack thereof, is just it is part of the non cis het minority, and really kind of just like tag somebody as like a safe person to talk to, so it's not like any one particular thing. And from what I understand, different people in different parts of the country actually, they view the word differently. Just like in Spokane, the queer community would never ever call themselves queer.
That's so interesting, and like the way you just explained it, it seemed like so easy. You were like, but I
Yeah.
know there was probably such a roller coaster of emotions and like things.
Absolutely.
It's I growing up in like a conservative cage and in the country and stuff, the word queer had such like negative or just queer
Mhm.
meaning to it. So to like have people use it and identify as it's like fascinating to me because like you said, you identified as bisexual first, and then you you went through all these different journeys, and it's like, how can people find that word the way it's used, the way you identify as it, like do you have
Mhm.
any suggestions?
I really think it depends the community you're around, because that's really like, why are we labeling ourselves anything except to help identify us to other members of our community? And so, if you're living somewhere like Spokane, or maybe it's even some parts of the South where it's like, queer is still used by a lot of people as someone hurling an insult, and you're not comfortable using that term, then, by all means, don't do that, because queer really is just an umbrella term. It's something that encompasses everybody. If you're lesbian, you can be queer. If you're gay, you can be queer. Like, queer is just the community of non cis het people. And, it's if you are in a place where it's still an insult, then I wouldn't use that. I wouldn't identify that, because you're gonna find people who are maybe upset with you for using that term in the first place. So I would really just talk to your community, you know what I mean? See what fits you best. And I mean, it's definitely going to be, for every person, like, kind of like an emotional journey for themselves to see, what identifier fits me and makes me feel like the person I am.
Did your friends and family accept it when you like tried to explain it to them? Were
I
they
mean,
just like, another word, come on?
so I think it's a little different for me in that I don't really talk to my family anymore. I've pretty much cut off that entire part of my life. But my friends that I have now, like 90% of them are friends that I've made here in Portland within the queer community. And they were the ones who introduced me to that term, because, like I said before that, I was like, oh, don't call anyone, don't call me that, I'm not queer. I was really adverse to the term at first. But yeah, because it was, for me, it was an insult. I was like, don't call me that, that's rude, horrible. And then like, no, I'm queer. I'm like, what? Why would you call me
Right.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So did you kind of just like shed that bisexual, like pansexual skin, or is it like,
No.
here's why I asked that question, because okay, queer's like an umbrella term, almost like I don't fit in any room, I don't fit in with any type of group. I want all the groups, like I want to be part of all the groups. So are there still parts of you that like is strong to any sort of community, or is it just heavily like, what, it's queer, I can't like, I like all colors, but I kind of lean towards gray for some reason.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I totally get what you mean. And I think for me, I still kind of go back and forth sometimes. And it honestly depends on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to like cis het people, I will tell them I'm bisexual, because that is a term that I feel like they can just easily kind of chew and swallow without having to have a 45-minute discussion on things. But yeah, I mean, I identify as queer, but I also identify as bisexual or pansexual, because for me, those two identities are, I want to make sure that I'm having everybody else's identity included in that. Like, I don't want to erase specifically like non-binary people, or like female-bodied, male-bodied, non-binary people. I'm still attracted to them as well, and I don't want to say, oh, I'm bisexual, and they're like, I'm not really either of those things. So queer for me is about inclusion, and it's about making sure that my identity isn't trying to exclude those of other people.
that's a good point right there. Yeah. You
Yeah.
don't want to like sneak in and then somebody be like, well, I'm looking at your history, your career here, and you've done some non-bisexual thing, and like, if the policing starts, you got to jump back into the queer room.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a term that came about because of that, because of the like mega labeledness of humans?
Actually, so before we sat down and do this, I actually did look up the history of the word queer, just to kind of see like, where did it come from, what was it? And I thought it was a slur, and we kind of took it back as a community, and so stick it to the man. But yeah, so we back, and I think that it just, linguistically fills a hole. We need an umbrella term, because like, so I'm bisexual. I typically prefer women. That doesn't mean I wouldn't, date a man. It doesn't mean I'm like, I've heard some people call it like homo flexible or something like that. And I don't like, I don't like that term at all. I'm attracted to men and women. I typically prefer women. But queer is just, it's so much easier to say that one word, to say that, I'm part of this community, whatever it is, without having to go into who I am, and like, like I said, like a 45-minute discussion. And it could even be, if you're a transgendered woman who does not want to have any kind of transition, but you're still lesbian. Like having to try and like just describe all of that to some stranger you barely know, because you know they've always got their questions. You know, and I'm obviously I don't identify as that, but I have friends who use that queer term because it encompasses so much that they don't have to go into this like, you know, 10-minute lecture on themselves. They can just say I'm queer, and other people, at least in Portland, are just like, yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this is the most amazing concept to me, because there are a lot of people who like they kind of like, they're almost chameleons. Like they adapt to different things, they accept different things, and I feel like that's a really good, like, this is the word that explains that you can't box me into this one box, because I got a lot going on and I got a lot of like flavor. Like I'm not just one color. I'm not just one sexuality. I am the spectrum. I'm the queer spectrum. That's freaking gangster.
Right?
Like I like that, because you know how sometimes I don't want to say pressured, but it's kind of like heavy for you to like take up arms with a team almost in the community. I feel like sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. There can be some exclusion in the community as well. You know.
Yeah. Because like when you were saying, what were you saying? Something about like homo flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Like what that kind of feels like implies that you are open to all queer people, and you're like, no, I like men too. Like,
Mm-hmm. Well, and I hear it a lot from like I don't want to call anybody out, but I hear it a lot from like especially my
say it. Don't be afraid.
mostly it's cisgendered white gay men, and they, you know, yeah,
My cat showing its ass to that. Like cisgender white men.
well, yeah, and for me, you know, I feel like within the queer community, they're still the most privileged. You know, with every exception other than being gay, they are the most privileged people in the country still, and I think that they kind of react to that. So, you know, when I hear things like homo flexible, I'm hearing, you know, oh, you say you're gay, but are you really? Like, you know, or you're dating women, but you can date men on the side, or I don't know. It's for me, it's a pretty loaded term, and I don't know why it exists. Bisexual. Like I'm queer, pansexual. I like, you know, I like everybody. Everybody's great. Bodies are beautiful.
Yeah, fuck them all. Woo!
Woo! In the back.
Your cat's like peeking from behind you, like, ooh, yeah, fuck them all.
Your cat supports it, so you know it's a good idea.
Cat's ready to fuck everybody.
She is.
Cats are queer, okay? Like I've never seen a cat turn down anything.
Yeah. Don't blame them.
If she were a person, she'd be lesbian. 100%.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
All cats would.
Of everybody.
Sometimes I think my chihuahua is a lesbian and my cat is like, I don't know. He might be like queer because he'll love on me. He's way too excited about this meeting too. So, you know, I wonder, when you said cis white male, it's like, it almost makes me think, like, what did they have to do with this? Like, I feel like when you tell somebody, like a cis white male, that you're queer, that should like send off something. If I was them, I would just be like, well, I don't know what's going on, so I'm gonna step off. But I guess nothing stops them, huh?
No.
Because what I don't know why I thought that, because when you tell them you're a lesbian, that doesn't stop them. So it's like, why would that?
Yeah, no, and queer, especially, at least especially with straight cis white men who are, or straight or bisexual, men who are attracted to female-bodied people. You know, if I say queer to them, that's almost like an invitation to be like, well, I'm not entirely gay, so maybe I should push it on forward. Yeah.
They think you left the door cracked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in case I wanted to invite them in.
Right.
Just tiptoeing in here, checking in.
Right. Like,
Tiptoeing in my Sperry's. Here we go.
right.
I wear
Christina
Sperry's.
behind you. Dude, don't. I mean, I wish I could wear Sperry's. I noticed this trend in the country of like all people black or white wearing Sperry's. And the second I saw somebody with black socks and brown Sperry's, I was like, this ain't for me.
That's a mismatch.
Yeah.
I think more of that would be acceptable up here, though. Stephanie, you know,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Candle situation up here.
I can try whatever I want up there. I can
Mhm.
mismatch all my patterns, and it'll be cool anyways.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Portland's just like, yeah, all right.
Portland's the scene. So you went to, was it Spokane?
I grew up there.
Oh, okay. And then, you know, is Portland just super like when you go there, you're just gonna find out so much amazing LGBT stuff?
Okay. Compared to where I grew up, hell yes. I mean, but I grew up in like, it is the south of the north. It is the armpit of the Pacific Northwest. Like Spokane, I'm sorry everyone who lives in Spokane, awful. Especially if you're a person of color, especially if you are not you know, at least straight performing. Like Spokane's terrible, which is why we moved here, my sister and I, because we wanted to be around a queer community. We wanted to be around more people of color. You know, there's a big Native American community down here that I can be involved in. There really isn't in Spokane anymore. But when we got here, it was all new and exciting, and so it was a lot more than we ever had. But I would still say that a lot of the dating scene around here is still pretty. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like it's still pretty hard to find anybody in the. I don't know how it is for men or male identifying people, but as far as a woman trying to find a female identifying person, it's still pretty difficult. Like I don't know. I find a lot of like it's hard.
It's hard to find.
My
yeah, it's hard to find a woman anywhere, honestly.